The Aviator came out in the year 2004. It was directed by Martin Scorsese and stars Leonardo DiCaprio. Director and aviator Howard Hughes battles critics, competitors, the law, and himself as he works his way towards becoming one of the wealthiest men in the world. What's really interesting about The Aviator is that this is one of the few Martin Scorsese movies that is not rated R. In a Martin Scorsese movie, you always see a lot of sexual content, foul language, over-the-top sequences. That is not the case in The Aviator. This movie is only rated PG-13, which begs the question, why did Scorsese in this film decide to veer towards a PG-13 rating? Because a lot of his movies are rated R. Obviously, he has a couple movies that are not R-rated, like Hugo in recent years. The box office numbers don't help answer any of these questions either, because the film only made over $200 million, which is not mind-blowing in the 20th century. The one thing I did take away from watching this movie, though, for the first time, is that it is honestly typical Oscar bait, and there are 3 reasons for why I think this movie was nominated for so many Oscars in 2005. First and foremost, Martin Scorsese. Second, Leonardo DiCaprio. And third, it is a biopic. Considering the runtime of The Aviator is almost 3 hours long as well, I could not help but to think that this movie was solely made for the purpose of getting Oscar nominations. I'm not saying this movie doesn't have any great aspects, because of course it does. It's a Martin Scorsese movie. But after watching it for the first time, I honestly don't think they tried nearly as hard enough to make this movie as good as some of Scorsese's other movies. Going back to the PG-13 rating, one positive I do have in regards to this rating is that it is very refreshing to see a Martin Scorsese movie that is only PG-13. There aren't many sexual sequences, there is not a lot of foul language in this movie. If you guys have been watching my videos, you know I'm not the biggest fan of when movies dive deep into those elements. I don't like when there's a lot of sexual content or a ton of foul language. It turns me off from time to time. So to see a Martin Scorsese movie that is only PG-13, it's refreshing, I have to say. And besides Scorsese, the other main reason why I wanted to finally check out The Aviator is because of Leonardo DiCaprio playing Howard Hughes, who yet again gives a lively performance. The guy is one of my favorite actors for a reason. Here in this movie, he further cements himself as one of the best actors working today. I'll touch more on DiCaprio's performance in a moment, because I do have a few things to say about it on the negative side, which is funny because DiCaprio being one of my favorite actors ever, you would think the guy is perfect, but there is no such thing as a perfect actor, so I'll get right back to that in just a bit. A few other elements I want to point out that are great in The Aviator include the music, which in a Martin Scorsese movie, the music is never bad. That is a fact. The cinematography in The Aviator was discussed a good amount by both critics and audiences when this film came out in 2004. It's 100% unique in many shots. The characters are colored while the background is this bluish gray, and even after Martin Scorsese passes away, I guarantee you people will still be talking about The Aviator cinematography, because it is one of the most colorful looking Martin Scorsese movies to date. This movie has vivid colors popping throughout. It's a complete opposite look of Scorsese's gangster flicks. Also, I want to point out how much I enjoyed the sequences where Howard Hughes' OCD comes full throttle out towards all these other characters on the screen. As terrible as that sounds, this was one of the key elements in the movie that makes The Aviator as good for some people as it does, because it puts a huge focus on how disruptive OCD can be for some people in real life. Scorsese decides to make these OCD scenes comical, which I think is the right decision, because Scorsese movies always have a lot of comedy, and in this movie you can see how much this is affecting the mind of Howard Hughes. His OCD is getting the best of him. In this film, there's a scene where he's washing his hands because he is so afraid of catching a virus that we don't even know if it's around anymore. So I love the scenes where Howard Hughes' OCD was on full display. This was paired with some funny dialogue. I thought that was a great combination for the audience to have some laughs. I actually didn't know nearly as much as I thought I did when it comes to the symptoms of OCD before watching this movie, and after watching the film I did more research, and now I understand why Howard Hughes does certain things that he does in this movie. He tends to repeat himself a lot. There are a lot of things he does in this film that I had no clue were symptoms of OCD. Now it's time for me to get back into the thick of DiCaprio's performance as Howard Hughes. Of course, he does a really good job playing a character on the screen. DiCaprio always does. He kills it every single time. But as Howard Hughes, do you think his performance is a bit over the top? Because I kind of do. It's not very authentic for a real-life story. In the film, it feels like he's playing a milder version of his own Jordan Belfort performance, which I highly doubt Howard Hughes acted as crazy as DiCaprio is portraying his character to be in the movie. It just isn't believable. That's at least how I see it. I'm sure Howard Hughes and DiCaprio's performance have a good amount of similarities between this and real life, but at the same time, it just does not always come off as authentic as I would like it to. That may be the only time you ever hear me say a bad thing about DiCaprio's acting, but I want to keep my reviews truthful, and that's the way I felt about DiCaprio's performance in The Aviator. Obviously, he's great, but it is a bit over the top for my liking, and I just don't buy it. One big problem I'm sure many people have with The Aviator is how the movie is not R-rated. Like I said, I am completely content with a PG-13 rating. It is refreshing for a Martin Scorsese movie, but I'm sure many other people have a huge issue with this. Something else that bothered me, though, is how the CGI does not hold up in 2020, and when I say that, I'm talking about the plane sequences when Leonardo DiCaprio is flying these planes that are clearly CGI. The wide shots, they don't look as bad, but when we get to a medium shot of the planes, that's when you can start seeing through the CGI. It does not look great in 2020. I do want to mention how this movie takes place over the course of just about 20 years, and it's very odd how Howard Hughes barely ever ages. Like, from the 1920s to the 1940s, the only thing that changes in his appearance is his mustache and a couple of scars on his body. That's about it. That's really odd. But definitely the thing that I had the biggest problem with in The Aviator is how this movie simply does not have as riveting of a story compared to Martin Scorsese's other films. I would even argue that there really isn't a story in The Aviator. It's just a series of events, and I know you can say the same thing about The Wolf of Wall Street, but at least The Wolf of Wall Street keeps you entertained from beginning to end. Yes, there are some entertaining sequences in The Aviator, but there aren't nearly as many entertaining sequences in The Aviator compared to The Wolf of Wall Street. I understand there's a lot of love for The Aviator, but I don't see it in the same light. This movie did get nominated for a lot of Oscars for certain reasons, but the way I see it, it's only because it's a Martin Scorsese directed movie, a DiCaprio starring film, and it's a biopic on somebody who's very famous. Of course, this movie has a lot of good things in it. That's enough for me to give this movie a decent enough score, but compared to Scorsese's greats, it's nowhere close. I'm giving The Aviator a 64%. Alright guys, I'm very curious to hear your thoughts on The Aviator. Do you love this movie? Do you think it's one of Scorsese's best films to date? Or are you like me? Do you think it's just a decent movie? I want to hear what you guys have to say, so let me know down below in the comment section. Next up, I plan on reviewing two films that I've had on my dock for the last 8 or so months, but never got to because of COVID. So I think it's finally time to review those two movies. What are those two movies? You'll soon find out. And as always, guys, if you are new to my channel, click the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Thank you all so much for watching this video, and I hope you all have a fantastic day.